My ex falsely accused me of abuse to win custody, so I exposed her secret life, how I got my son back. In 24 hours. The courtroom fell silent as the judge peered down at me over his glasses. My heart hammered against my ribs like it was trying to escape. 24 hours earlier, I had been a normal dad, playing catch with my 6-year-old son, Ethan. Now I was labeled an alleged abuser, fighting for the right to even see my own child. "Mr. Reynolds," the judge said, his voice echoing through the room, "these are serious allegations your wife has brought against you." I looked across the courtroom at Jessica, my soon-to-be ex-wife. Her eyes were red and puffy, practiced tears I knew now. She clutched her designer handbag like it contained all her worldly possessions, playing the part of the terrified victim to perfection. "Your Honor," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "I have never, would never harm my son or my wife. These accusations are completely false." Jessica's attorney, a sharp-suited woman with predatory eyes, stood up. "Your Honor, my client fears for her safety and the safety of their child. We request an emergency protective order and temporary full custody." The fear that gripped me was primal. I was about to lose my son based on lies. The judge sighed, looking down at the hastily filed paperwork. I knew that look. He'd seen this scenario play out countless times before. In his experience, where there was smoke, there was usually fire. What the judge didn't know, what nobody in that courtroom knew except Jessica and me, was that this was all part of her carefully calculated plan. A plan I had discovered just hours too late. But I had evidence of my own. Evidence that would turn Jessica's world upside down within the next 24 hours. This is the story of how I lost my son to false accusations and how the truth set us both free. The beginning of the end. Our marriage had been over for months before Jessica filed for divorce. Looking back, the signs were there. Late nights at work, new clothes, a password suddenly appearing on her phone. Classic tells of an affair that I was too trusting, or perhaps too blind to see. We had been college sweethearts, Jessica and I, met in sophomore year, married after graduation, built a life together in the suburbs of Chicago. I started a small construction company that grew into a successful business. Jessica worked as an executive assistant at Reynolds Financial Group, no relation to me, pure coincidence, one of the city's premier wealth management firms. Ethan came along 6 years into our marriage, a beautiful, bright-eyed boy with Jessica's blonde hair and my crooked smile. He was the center of our world, the glue that held us together even as other parts of our relationship began to crumble. The fighting started small, disagreements about schedules, parenting styles, money, but it escalated quickly. Jessica began criticizing everything, my work hours, my parenting, even the way I loaded the dishwasher. Nothing I did was right anymore. "You're never home," she would say, though I was home by 6 p.m. most nights to have dinner with her and Ethan. "You don't make enough time for us," she would complain. Though weekends were sacred family time in my calendar, I suggested counseling. She refused. I tried date nights. She was always too tired or had work events. I was trying to save a marriage that I later realized she had already abandoned. The divorce papers came on a Tuesday. I was surprised, but not shocked. We agreed to mediation, to keep things amicable for Ethan's sake. I moved into the guest bedroom. We told Ethan that Daddy and Mommy were going through some changes, but that we both loved him more than anything. "We're going to have 2 houses now," I explained to him as he sat on my lap, his small fingers playing with the buttons on my shirt. "And you'll get to have 2 bedrooms and double the toys." He nodded solemnly, processing this new reality with the remarkable adaptability of children. Will you still take me fishing on Saturdays? Every Saturday I have you, buddy. That's a promise. We worked out a temporary custody arrangement, alternating weeks, while the divorce proceeded. It wasn't perfect, but it was working. Ethan was adjusting. I was healing. Even Jessica seemed more relaxed, happier somehow. I should have known that calm precedes the storm. The accusation. 3 weeks into our separation, I arrived to pick up Ethan for my week with him. Jessica met me at the door, but Ethan wasn't ready as usual. In fact, he wasn't there at all. "He's at my mother's," Jessica said, not quite meeting my eyes. "I thought it would be better this way." "Better what way?" I asked, confused. "We agreed I'd take him today." "Things have changed, Daniel." Her voice was cold, detached. "My lawyer will be contacting yours." Before I could respond, she shut the door in my face. I stood there, keys in hand, overnight bag packed with Ethan's favorite snacks, utterly bewildered. My phone rang an hour later. It was my lawyer, Marcus. "Daniel, we have a situation," he said, his normally calm voice tense. "Jessica has filed for an emergency custody order. She's alleging abuse." The word hit me like a physical blow. "Abuse? Me?" "That's insane," I said, my voice rising. "I've never laid a hand on Ethan or Jessica. Never even raised my voice at them." I know," Marcus tried to calm me, "but she's claiming a pattern of emotional abuse and threatening behavior. She says you've made comments about taking Ethan away or maybe where she'll never find him." My mind raced. Yes, we'd fought. Yes, there had been heated words, but threats, abuse. These were fabrications, complete lies invented out of thin air. "This is about the prenup," I said suddenly, realization dawning. Our prenuptial agreement had a fidelity clause. If either party cheated, they would receive significantly less in the divorce settlement. And Jessica had been spending an awful lot of time with her boss lately. "Maybe," Marcus said cautiously. "But right now, we need to focus on countering these allegations. They've been granted a temporary emergency hearing tomorrow morning. Custody cases involving abuse allegations move quickly." The next 12 hours were the longest of my life. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. All I could think about was Ethan, confused and separated from me, being told God knows what about his father. By morning, fear had given way to determination. I would fight this. I would not lose my son to lies. That's when I received a text from an unknown number that would change everything. The message that changed everything. "Daniel, you don't know me, but I work with Jessica at Reynolds Financial. There's something you need to know. Call me. It's about your son." I stared at the message, suspicious but desperate for any information. With shaking fingers, I dialed the number. "Hello?" A woman's voice answered, hushed and nervous. "This is Daniel Reynolds. You texted me?" "Yes." She took a deep breath. "My name is Amanda. I'm a paralegal at Reynolds. I've seen Jessica and Mr. Reynolds together." "Mr. Reynolds? Her boss?" I asked, confused. "Yes, Robert Reynolds, Jr. They've been having an affair for months. Everyone in the office knows, but that's not why I'm calling." She paused. "Yesterday, I overheard them in his office. They were talking about your case, about the accusations." My grip tightened on the phone. "What about them?" She admitted they weren't true. She said, and I quote, "Daniel is the most gentle person I know. He'd never hurt a fly, let alone Ethan. But the judge doesn't know that. Then they laughed about how the abuse allegations would help her get full custody and a better settlement. My blood ran cold, then hot with anger. Did anyone else hear this? No, but she hesitated. I took notes. I've been documenting their relationship because of company policy about supervisor-subordinate relationships. I've been building a case for HR. I have dates, times, text messages she sent him that came through the company server. Hope surged through me. Would you be willing to sign an affidavit? Testify if needed? Another pause. Yes, what they're doing to you and your son isn't right. I have a brother who lost custody of his kids in a similar situation. I can't let it happen to someone else. We arranged to meet before the hearing. As I hung up, my mind was already racing with next steps. Amanda's testimony would help, but I needed more. I needed irrefutable evidence. Then I remembered Jessica's old iPad, the one she'd replaced recently but had left in our home office, the one that was still signed into her iCloud account. I found it charging in a drawer. When I turned it on, it opened without requiring a password. And there they were, hundreds of messages between Jessica and Robert, explicit photos, hotel receipts, plans for their future together, and buried among them, the smoking gun, a message from Jessica to Robert from just 1 week ago. The lawyer says if I want to make sure I get the house and full custody, I need something stronger than just irreconcilable differences, she suggested, claiming emotional abuse. I know it's extreme, but it's the only way to make sure he doesn't get equal custody. With your father's connections at the courthouse, we can make sure it sticks just long enough to get the settlement finalized. I took screenshots of everything, backed them up to my own accounts, printed key messages. And then I made one more crucial discovery. Robert Reynolds Jr. wasn't just Jessica's boss. He was the son of Judge Robert Reynolds Sr., one of the most influential judges in the county circuit court. The same circuit court where my case was being heard. This wasn't just about an affair. It was about corruption, about abusing the legal system to steal my son and my assets, about two people so wrapped up in their own desires that they were willing to destroy an innocent man's reputation and separate a child from his loving father. I had less than 3 hours until the hearing. But now, I had a plan. The countdown begins. 8:00 a.m. I met Amanda at a coffee shop near the courthouse. She handed me a manila envelope containing her documented timeline of Jessica and Robert's affair, copies of emails, and her signed affidavit describing the conversation she had overheard. I could lose my job for this, she said, her hands trembling slightly around her coffee cup. I know, and I can't thank you enough, I replied. If there's ever anything I can do, just make sure your son stays with you, she interrupted. Children need both parents when both parents are good people. My brother, he hasn't seen his kids in 2 years because of false accusations. Don't let that happen to you. I promised her I wouldn't. 9:15 a.m. I called Marcus and explained everything I had discovered. He was skeptical at first. This kind of dramatic evidence doesn't usually fall into one's lap at the 11th hour. But when I forwarded him the screenshots and Amanda's documents, he whistled low. This changes everything, he said. But Daniel, we have a problem. If Judge Reynolds Sr. is involved in this corruption, we can't bring this to him. And he's the judge assigned to your emergency hearing. My heart sank. So whatever we do? We need to get this in front of the right people. I have a contact in the district attorney's office, and we need to file for an emergency change of judge based on conflict of interest. We only have an hour before the hearing, I reminded him. Then we'd better move fast. 9:30 a.m. While Marcus worked his legal magic, I made 2 more crucial calls. The first was to Robert Reynolds Sr. himself, not as a judge, but as a father. I didn't threaten or accuse. I simply told him I had evidence that his son was involved in an affair with my wife, and that they were using his position to manipulate the legal system. I don't want to embarrass your family or the court, I said carefully, but I will not lose my son to corruption and lies. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then, I'll look into this immediately, Mr. Reynolds. The second call was to Robert Reynolds, Jr. I didn't tell him what I knew or what evidence I had. I simply asked him to meet me at the courthouse an hour before the hearing to discuss the situation with Jessica. Curious and perhaps a bit suspicious, he agreed. 10:15 a.m. I arrived at the courthouse with Marcus. We filed our emergency motion for a change of judge based on conflict of interest. The court clerk looked confused, but processed the paperwork. 10:30 a.m. Robert Jr. arrived, looking every bit the wealthy financial executive in his tailored suit and Italian shoes. I met him in the courthouse lobby, away from the courtrooms themselves. I appreciate you meeting me, I said, extending my hand politely. He shook it, a look of smug superiority on his face. I'm not sure what you think this will accomplish, Daniel. Jessica has made her choice. I'm not here about Jessica's romantic choices, I said calmly. I'm here about my son and about the false accusations being used to separate him from his father. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. I don't know what you're talking about. I took out my phone and pulled up one of the screenshots, the one where Jessica explicitly mentioned using false abuse allegations to secure custody. I showed it to him silently. The color drained from his face. Where did you get that? I have everything, Robert. Every message, every photo, every plan you two made, including using your father's position to influence my case. He swallowed hard. What do you want? Money? I felt a surge of disgust. I want my son. I want the false allegations withdrawn. I want a fair divorce proceeding. And if I refuse? Then, in about 30 minutes, copies of all these messages will be delivered to your father, your wife, the partners at your firm, and the State Bar Association Ethics Committee. I let that sink in. Oh, and the local news stations. They love stories about corruption in the family courts. He stared at me, calculating his options. I could almost see the wheels turning behind his eyes. You're bluffing, he said finally. I smiled thinly. I'm really not. In fact, I've already spoken with your father this morning. That hit home. Robert Jr. had been using his father's position without his knowledge, I realized. The judge wasn't corrupt. He was being manipulated by his son. Give me your phone, Robert demanded suddenly. Not a chance. But I will give you 20 minutes to contact Jessica and have her withdraw the false allegations. After that, I start sending messages. He glared at me, then stormed off, already pulling out his own phone. I checked my watch. The hearing was scheduled for 11:00 a.m. Time was running out. The hearing, 10:50 a.m. Marcus received a call from the court clerk. Our case had been reassigned to Judge Harriet Chen due to an unspecified recusal by Judge Reynolds Sr. Our first victory. 10:55 a.m. As we waited outside the courtroom, I saw Jessica hurrying down the hallway, her lawyer struggling to keep up. Her face was a mask of panic and fury. When she spotted me, she stormed over. "What did you say to Robert?" she hissed, keeping her voice low. "The truth," I replied calmly. "That I know about your affair, and I know about your false accusations." Her eyes widened. "You can't prove anything." I took out my phone and showed her the same screenshot I had shown Robert. I have hundreds more, including your plan to use his father's position to influence the case." She paled visibly. "Daniel, be reasonable. Think about what this will do to Ethan if it becomes public." It was the mention of our son that finally broke my composure. "Don't you dare use him as a shield," I whispered furiously. "You were willing to tell him his father was abusive, to rob him of a parent who loves him. All for what? Money? A new life with Robert? Was it worth it, Jessica?" Before she could answer, her lawyer pulled her aside for an urgent, whispered conversation. I saw Jessica's shoulders slump in defeat. 11 a.m. Judge Chen called our case. As we entered the courtroom, Jessica's lawyer immediately requested a brief continuance to reassess some newly discovered information. Judge Chen, looking mildly annoyed, granted a 30-minute recess. 11:30 a.m. When we reconvened, the atmosphere in the courtroom had completely changed. Jessica's lawyer stood and addressed the court. "Your Honor, my client wishes to withdraw her petition for an emergency protective order. She acknowledges that there has been a misunderstanding regarding the allegations against Mr. Reynolds." Judge Chen raised an eyebrow. "A misunderstanding about abuse allegations, Counselor?" The lawyer squirmed visibly. "Yes, Your Honor. In the emotional context of the divorce, certain statements were misinterpreted. My client no longer wishes to pursue these particular claims." The judge turned her penetrating gaze to Jessica. "Mrs. Reynolds, do you understand the seriousness of making abuse allegations in a custody case, and the equal seriousness of withdrawing them if they were made in bad faith?" Jessica nodded, not meeting the judge's eyes. "I do, Your Honor. There was confusion, emotional distress. I want to withdraw the allegations." Judge Chen was not satisfied. "This court does not look kindly on the family law system being used as a weapon in divorce proceedings, Mrs. Reynolds. There are real victims of abuse who struggle to be heard and believed because of cases like this." "Yes, Your Honor," Jessica whispered. The judge sighed heavily. "The petition for emergency custody is dismissed. We will revert to the previously agreed-upon temporary custody arrangement until the final divorce hearing." She looked at both of us sternly. "I strongly suggest both parties focus on the best interests of their child going forward." 11:45 a.m. As we left the courtroom, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Ethan was safe. I would see him tonight. The nightmare of false accusations was over. Jessica caught up to me in the hallway. Her makeup was smeared from crying, her confident facade completely crumbled. "Daniel," she began, her voice shaking. "I'm sorry. I didn't think about what this would do to Ethan, to you. I panicked about the prenup, about losing the house, about—" "Stop," I interrupted. "I don't want your apologies. I want you to bring Ethan to our house at 5 p.m. as originally planned for my week with him. And I want you to tell him the truth, that Daddy didn't do anything wrong, that you made a mistake." She nodded miserably. "What about the evidence? What will you do with it?" I looked at her. This woman I had once loved enough to marry, to have a child with, now a stranger to me. "That depends on you, Jessica. I won't use it to hurt you if you never try to use false allegations against me again. All I want is to be Ethan's father and to be treated fairly in our divorce." She agreed quickly, relief washing over her face. What she didn't know was that I had already sent copies of everything to my lawyer with instructions to keep them secure in case she ever tried something like this again. I wasn't being magnanimous. I was being strategic. A messy public scandal wouldn't be good for Ethan either. but I would never again be vulnerable to Jessica's manipulation. As we parted ways, Marcus clapped me on the shoulder. "You did it! 24 hours ago, you were facing losing your son. Now you've exposed the truth and protected him." I nodded, exhausted but relieved. Let's hope the worst is behind us. Little did I know, the fallout was just beginning. The aftermath. I've a copy. Jessica brought Ethan to our house as agreed. The moment I saw his little face light up at the sight of me, I knew every struggle had been worth it. "Daddy!" he cried, launching himself into my arms. "I missed you. Grandma doesn't have any Legos at her house." I held him tight, breathing in the scent of his shampoo, feeling the solid reality of him in my arms. "I missed you too, buddy. So much." Jessica stood awkwardly in the doorway, her usual confidence shattered. Following my instructions, she knelt down to Ethan's level. "Ethan, honey, Mommy made a mistake," she said, her voice trembling. "I said some things about Daddy that weren't true, because I was upset. Daddy didn't do anything wrong. He loves you very much, and you're going to stay with him this week, just like we planned." Ethan looked between us, confused but accepting in the way of children. "Okay, can we have pizza for dinner, Dad?" Just like that, his world was right again. If only adult problems could be solved so easily. After Jessica left, Ethan and I spent the evening building Lego spaceships and watching his favorite movies. I savored every moment, acutely aware of how close I had come to losing this precious time with him. That night, after Ethan was asleep, my phone buzzed with a series of notifications. News was spreading fast. Robert Reynolds Jr. had resigned from his position at Reynolds Financial Group, citing personal reasons. An internal investigation into workplace relationship policies had been launched. Judge Reynolds Sr. had issued a public statement announcing his recusal from all divorce and custody cases for the foreseeable future, pending a review of potential conflicts of interest. Jessica had been placed on administrative leave from her job, her professional reputation in tatters due to her relationship with her boss and the emerging whispers about false accusations. I felt no satisfaction in their downfall, only relief that the truth had prevailed and that my son was sleeping safely in his bed down the hall. 1 year later, the divorce was finalized 6 months after the courtroom showdown. Without the leverage of false abuse allegations, and with the prenuptial agreement's fidelity clause in full effect, Jessica received a fair but not extravagant settlement. More importantly, we established a custody arrangement that truly prioritized Ethan's well-being, joint legal custody with a week-on, week-off schedule. Jessica found a new job in a different field. Robert Reynolds Jr. moved to another state after his divorce was finalized. His father retired from the bench, his previously sterling reputation tarnished by the whisper of nepotism, though no formal charges of judicial misconduct were ever filed. Amanda was promoted at Reynolds Financial after the company restructuring that followed the scandal. She and I remain friends. She joins Ethan and me for dinner occasionally, and he adores her. As for me, I gained something unexpected from this ordeal: perspective. The threat of losing my son made me realize how precious our time together is. I scaled back my work hours, delegated more responsibilities at my company, and focused on being present for Ethan's childhood. We still go fishing every Saturday when he's with me. We built a treehouse in the backyard together. I never miss a school conference or a t-ball game. These moments, the ordinary, everyday moments of fatherhood, are the true measure of wealth in my life now. Jessica and I have reached a cautious truce for Ethan's sake. The hurt and betrayal haven't disappeared, but they've faded enough for us to sit together at his school performances without tension. She's seeing a therapist, working through the insecurities and fears that led her to such destructive choices. I find I can almost forgive her, if not forget. Sometimes at night, when the house is quiet and Ethan is asleep, I think about how close I came to losing him. How a false accusation nearly destroyed my life. How truth prevailed, but only because I was lucky enough to find evidence in time. Not every falsely accused parent is so fortunate. Some lose their children, their reputations, their futures, based on lies that can never be disproven. The family court system, for all its good intentions, is flawed. Vulnerable to manipulation by those who view children as pawns rather than precious beings deserving of both parents' love. If my story has a moral, perhaps it's this: document everything. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. Fight with everything you have for your children. And remember that in even the darkest moments, the truth has power, if you can find it and bring it to light. Those 24 hours changed my life forever. They taught me how quickly everything you love can be threatened and how fiercely you must protect it. They showed me the worst in people I once trusted, but also the best in unexpected allies like Amanda. Most importantly, they reminded me what truly matters. Not money or property or winning the divorce, but the small boy who calls me daddy and believes I can fix anything. Some things, once broken, can never be fully repaired. A marriage, trust, certain kinds of innocence. But other things grow stronger after being tested, like the bond between a father and son who almost lost each other. Every night, when I tuck Ethan in, I whisper the same words. I love you, buddy, always and forever, no matter what. And every night, he smiles sleepily and whispers back, love you too, Dad. Can we have pancakes tomorrow? In those moments, I know that despite everything we've been through, we're going to be okay. If you're a parent facing false allegations in a custody battle, know that you're not alone. Document everything. Find strong legal representation. Seek support from organizations that understand your situation. And never, ever give up the fight for your children. Truth may not always prevail easily or quickly, but it's the only foundation on which to build your case and your future with your kids.